Tonight's speaker is Erin McMullin. I can't say I've known Erin all her life, but I did go to college with her parents, Laura and Mike. And Erin has, from my point of view, led a very interesting life. She taught worked at a small private school in Colorado that my daughter went to for a year. Erin was there. You've also had a Fulbright scholarship and went to India and studied suicide among Indian farmers.
Cotton farmers in particular.
Okay. And now she is a VISTA volunteer at St. Louis University, getting the FoodCorps off the ground. Right? Okay, so please welcome Erin.
Yeah, I'll just talk for a little bit and then we can explore some videos and things together. I had a presentation, but technical difficulties, so I'll just talk a little bit about what SLU FoodCorps is and some of the projects that I've been involved with. And then there are a couple of videos that we can watch, very short videos that explain one of the projects that I worked on. And then the other project was creating an online map that delves into breaking down food deserts a little bit. And so we can go to that online map and just explore it together. I have a great presentation that explains how I made it, but we'll just skip that and deal with all the goodies. So SLU FoodCorps is a part of AmeriCorps, which is the National Volunteer Service Program in the United States. It's kind of like Peace Corps for the U.S. And St. Louis University's Nutrition and Dietetics Department has a very big focus on sustainability. They run a dietetic internship and an undergrad and a graduate program. And their dietetic interns have to, as part of teaching nutrition, have to go out and also teach kids where their food comes from. Because the university believes that you can't teach nutrition without teaching first how food is grown. And so part of the healthy eating habits is also sustainably growing your own food. So knowing what kinds of things are going into the soil, into the plants, how you're growing those plants, how you're getting the fruits and the vegetables from them, that's all the very, very, very first step in good nutrition practices. So our program, we have a garden on campus that's about the size of a city block. That's not right, but I'm having a hard, maybe half a block. I can't remember the acreage, but it's a fairly large garden. We have, let's see, we have 18 raised beds and then 4 row beds, and we just installed a geothermal high tunnel in the garden. We also expanded the garden, so on the west side of it, we just put in an urban orchard, which is going to have close to 40 different fruits and nut trees. And so the garden and the orchard kind of serve as two different purposes. Our dietetic interns come to our garden and learn from me, another VISTA, and a master gardener who's a SLU alum, how to teach gardening and nutrition education as a combination. So we use our garden to teach them how to go out to public schools that have gardens and teach kids about gardening. We also will bring other people, other gardeners, other professionals to our garden and bring in experts to do trainings. So when we established our orchard, that for us was an opportunity to teach people how to plant trees, how to prune fruit trees, because we already had several established fruit trees. So it became a workshop, and our geothermal high tunnel will function like that as we explore and figure out how we're going to use it, what works, what doesn't. That will be kind of a community education component. And we're always looking for ways to expand those community education efforts. It can be hard when you're, following the curriculum for your own classes in your own departments, but that's one of the reasons why the department applied for AmeriCorps Vistas. And so for the last 3 to 4 years, there was 1 year where they took a break. We have had AmeriCorps volunteers at the university in the dietetics department. And my co-partner in crime, the other Vista, is the garden Vista. And her job is to teach those gardening education classes to make sure that we have some community garden beds available in the garden, so she coordinates those. She does a lot of we sell our produce. She kind of coordinates those programs. And I help with it because I like to be in the garden. But my role as Vista at SLU is more on the social side of things. So dealing with looking at hunger issues in St. Louis and who has access to healthy, affordable food, why they do, why they don't, and what can we do about that. So I'll read through a couple of the key sentences that kind of describe the work that we do. We train and build capacity through experiential learning to grow, harvest, prepare, preserve, and distribute food, and redirect food waste to compost. So that's kind of more what Kristen does, although I was involved with the food preservation stuff this summer as well. And then we look for ways to nourish the people and also the land, but also to build resilience and hope for a better future in an effort to eradicate poverty. So teaching people how to grow their own food is a very empowering thing. And there are a lot of community gardens in St. Louis and a lot of opportunities for people to grow their own food. So looking into how to break into that so that we can break some of the cycles of hunger and poverty that are very prevalent in St. Louis. So that's kind of an overview, and my PowerPoint has a lot more information about where exactly in St. Louis are the high need areas, where people are hungry and poor, and where there is access to food and where there isn't. And we'll also get to see that when we go to the map that I've made. But I'll just go through a quick overview of the 2 main projects that I've done as AmeriCorps at SLU, and then get some feedback from you guys on what sounds interesting and what you want to explore. Since we're flying off the radar today, we can do whatever we want. So the first project that I did was create an online map that looks at food access points in St. Louis. So one of the things that we wanted to look into was the USDA. Does anyone know what the USDA defines a food desert as?
No nearby access to the grocery store?
Yeah, so there's lots of different indicators or levels of defining a food desert, but the most common one is, and I want to make sure I get this right, the original one was low-income census tracts where a significant number or share of residents are more than 1 mile in an urban setting or 10 miles in a rural setting from the nearest supermarket. So the definition is based on 2 things. It's based on if there is a grocery store there and the proximity to that grocery store, and also low income. So 3 things. And that original food desert measure is very, very limited. And after researching that a little bit more, the USDA realized it's maybe a little bit too limited, and it doesn't give an accurate description of where there may actually be a lack of access to food. So they expanded that to include lack of or access to vehicles, because even if you live close to a grocery store, you probably will drive your car to the grocery store. Most people drive to the grocery store because it's easier to load your groceries into your car and drive home and unload them. And then they also shortened the distance to half a mile in an urban area. So with that update, maybe I'll pass these around. So this is the original food desert measure, and these green areas are the areas that are included in that food desert.
And that's just St. Louis City?
This is just the city. It does show some of the county, but my research is mostly focused on the city, which I know you guys are out in the county, so. But you can go to, if you look up the Food Access Research Atlas, you can go and explore all of this at any place in the United States. So when they added the low income and low vehicle access component, it turned into this yellow area, which is a lot more than just that green. So this piece of paper has 2 sides, one with just the yellow and the other side with the green and the yellow. So you can see how much it's increased. And then the city of St. Louis did, oh, you know what I'm doing? I'm totally getting into this mapping thing without telling you what the other thing is. Are you guys interested in this? Should I just keep going? Okay. So the city of St. Louis has had conducted a needs assessment, and based on a lot of different health factors, and they did it by zip code, and they had a lot of different things that they tested for, and based on how the different zip code areas did, they rated them from a 1 to a 6, I think. And so there were definite areas of the city that were extremely low income, had a high risk of, you know, X, Y, and Z, like all of the different things that they tested for in this study. So I used that study to kind of just see what are the areas that the city of St. Louis considers to be the highest risk areas, and how do those compare to what the USDA has outlined as a food desert. So that's kind of where I started, to just kind of get a feel for the data that's out there. And as I was doing this, I was also going to different community organization meetings, getting involved with different organizations in the city, driving around, being a resident, getting a feel for the different parts of the city, seeing them firsthand, and kind of processing all of this information all together. So this is a picture of the zip code rating by the city, and compared to the food desert areas. So then came the really fun part. I have never done any kind of mapping before. And I emailed a friend who had just finished her master's in urban planning and sustainability. And I thought she probably would have a good recommendation for me, and she did. So I used this program called CartoDB, and they have a free version up to a certain amount of tables of data you can use. So what I did was I took several different layers of information to try to understand better where the actual areas of high need are in the city. So the first one that I started with was the low income, low vehicle access layer of food deserts that the USDA had determined. So that's here on this gray, the gray and the yellow, they're the same map, it's just the gray is only for in the city. So I wanted to see how the food desert areas compared to several different things. Median household income and percentage of households receiving SNAP or food stamps. So I got pretty savvy with going through census data, figured out how to translate the data into a map form. And what I did was I uploaded all three of those layers together. So I had the median household income, the percentage of households receiving food stamps, and I also had the areas that the USDA had defined as food deserts based on the low income, low access to vehicles. And what I found was that some areas definitely should be considered food deserts, and other areas I was a little surprised that they were considered a food desert. And the discrepancy may lie in the fact that I was using data from the American Community Survey, a 5-year collection of data from 2000 up to 2012. So, and I don't know for certain what exact year the USDA food desert data uses. But there were certain census tracts that were definitely very low income, had a high percentage of households receiving food stamps, and also were considered food deserts. But then there were other tracts that had a median household income of around $60,000 and had less than 5% of the households receiving food stamps, but they were still considered a food desert. And so for me, this process of adding all those components together really helped me to determine that, you know, that census tract that is a higher income area that doesn't have very many people on food stamps is not an area that we need to focus any of our time or efforts into, because they probably, you know, if less than 5% of the households are receiving food stamps, most of the people in that census tract probably have access to a way to get to a grocery store. So I used all of that information to decide what the areas of high need are in the city of St. Louis. And I decided that any area that was at or below 200% of the poverty level would be included in that. And then any area that, and when I say area, I mean census tract. Any census tract that had more than 30% of the households receiving food stamps would also be a high need area. So I combined those two components, and that was my base map for mapping out food access points. So then the other thing that that was my first map, to figure out how to map things, to get ready for the real map, which was to map food access points in the city, because the USDA defines food deserts based on whether or not there is a grocery store in the census tract. But grocery stores are very few and far between throughout the whole city. And so I felt like a better measurement, or at least a measurement that would maybe tell us more information about what was happening in those areas, would be to look at stores that accept food stamps. And that can tell us where there is access. We can make a generalization about what kind of food is accessible. And so I spent a good long time going through a list of all of the stores in the city of St. Louis that accept food stamps, and then categorizing all of those using Google Earth. If I didn't know the name of the store, then I typed in the address and I looked it up, and I could see, okay, this looks like a corner store, okay, this is a pharmacy, this is a shop and save, you know, I could figure it out based on that. So I categorized them, and I'll read those categories off for you, and I'll pass that category list around too. It's kind of small font. So I didn't really have there weren't very clear definitions regarding how other people had categorized these types of stores before. And the USDA has done work like this, and they actually have categorized all of these stores that accept food stamps, but they've done it with other components like what their annual revenue is based on what kinds of things they're selling at the store, the square footage of the store, and when it came to revenue for the store, that information was not public information. And because they had gathered it for a particular purpose that was not defining the categories on a public map, I didn't have access to that. And I tried to get access to it, but I was denied. So I decided I would just kind of use my own street smarts to make up my own categories. And if I were, and it's very biased, like it's my experience, what I view, but if I were to walk down the street and I were to see this store that accepts food stamps, how would I define it? So I came up with the following categories: convenience / corner / liquor store. They all kind of fall under the same category for me. Gas station food mart, farmer's market or farm, discount store, which would be like Family Dollar or Save-A-Lot. Supermarket, larger, has multiple dairy, produce, baked goods, deli. A superette or a smaller grocery store, so where there are fresh vegetables available. It's a small, generally locally owned business, much less variety available, but still has some good, healthy eating options. Drug stores like CVS or Walgreens. Specialty stores, these were very few, but there were some like meat stores or dairy stores. And I don't know how they're allowed to accept food stamps because you're supposed to have a certain amount of things and a certain amount of categories. But there were some specialty stores. And then there were healthy corner stores. So the University of Missouri St. Louis has a program called the Healthy Corner Store Project, and they work with corner stores to increase the amount of healthy eating options that are available at those stores. So that's a lot of times that's increasing the fresh fruits and vegetables, maybe teaching them to move the fresh fruits and vegetables from the back of the store to the front of the store, make sure that they're keeping them fresh, brighten up the signage, all sorts of different processes that they go through to increase the amount of healthy food available. And that's a really great model, and it's been really successful because they're taking something that already exists in the community, and they look for corner stores that are owned by people who have had that business in that community for several years, like 20 years, 30 years. And then they also have to have a community organization that has a relationship with that store. So they have a lot of different components that they use to go through this process of increasing the healthy options available at that store. And then the last category was a supercenter or a discount retailer like Target, Walmart, Kmart. So when I had finished categorizing these, I found some pretty shocking and sad numbers. Of all of the retail locations, there are about 335 retail locations in the city that accept food stamps. 40% of those are convenience stores, and 22% of those are gas station food marts. So when you combine those two, over 60% of the locations where people can use their food stamps are convenience stores or gas stations, which is pretty alarming. 2% are the Healthy Corner Store project. 2% are farms and farmers markets. 4% specialty store, 5% drugstore, 7% small grocery, 8% supermarket, and 10% discount store. So this, to me, told a much more in-depth and interesting story than the food deserts did. So I put all of those categories, all of those stores on a map. And then I also added garden locations and food pantries, because I felt like these are also places that are non-traditional food sources. So now the thing to know with both of them is that gardens, you're only getting food in the May through October if you're getting a good year. So that's not necessarily throughout the whole year. And then depends on the type of community garden. It may be accessible to a lot of people, it may not be. Has the community, along with getting the access to that land for gardening, received the education to know how to garden and to produce the best amount of food? These are all questions that we have to keep in our minds. And then food pantries are generally only open a couple of days a week for certain hours. So also some things to keep in mind. But, we should consider all of the options that are available in these different census tracts. So I created that map so that people could look at different areas of the city, and instead of just seeing this is a food desert, they could see this is a food desert. It doesn't have a grocery store, but it has 7 community gardens and 3 corner stores and 5 food pantries. And I wonder if these community gardens are connecting with the food pantries. If they ever have excess food, are they giving it to the food pantries? And then are the food pantries distributing that to the people in the neighborhood? Are the corner stores willing to buy from the community gardeners if they have excess produce? That's an additional livelihood option then for people who are living in an impoverished area. So I haven't done a whole lot more of exploring how we can use this map to create projects and to get creative instead of this model, which I've seen in St. Louis, I've seen in other places, of let's get a community co-op, a grocery co-op, let's get a grocery store to come into this area that doesn't have access. And 9 times out of 10, it fails. And so we need to come up with an alternative model. And the Healthy Corner Store project is actually a really great model. And I hope that this map can help people start to think about how they can connect other resources that are in the neighborhood to strengthen those options. So that was my project number 1 that I worked on. And then my most recent project has been working with a group of farmers markets in the St. Louis area to start a Double Up Food Bucks program in St. Louis called Snap To It, which I think, let's watch our video. We did mid-July through mid-August, we ran an Indiegogo campaign to raise money for this program. We had been trying to organize ourselves to apply for several different grants, and it just wasn't happening. And so I was like, let's just do it. Let's just like crowdsource and get some money and start this program and see what happens. So we're kind of in that phase of seeing what happens right now. But this is the video that we made to for that crowdsource campaign.
SNAP is the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, which is part of the Farm Bill. It is what is commonly referred to as food stamps. I've been researching some of the numbers about food stamp usage in Missouri, and we're actually one of the highest states for the percentage of eligible people who are registered for food stamps. And it's millions of dollars each year that they're spending. In the city and county of St. Louis, most of these SNAP eligible retailers are grocery stores, gas stations, and corner stores, which is not necessarily a place to get good, healthy food. So what we're trying to do is to create a program to enable more people to use SNAP at the farmers markets in St. Louis by creating a double dollar program, which would mean that somebody comes and runs their EBT card for $10 and we give them $20 to spend at the market.
When you look at health disparities between people who have money and people who do not, it all goes together. And one of the best ways that someone can improve their health is by a healthy diet. And one of the best ways to improve your diet is to shop at farmers markets. At farmers markets, you can get food that's super fresh, food that you never find in the grocery store, that's different, and that it's not traveled miles and miles to get to you.
If you donate to this campaign, it's going to affect people directly in your community. So if we get $3,000 to $5,000, we're going to, all that money is going to SNAP recipients. So at $10 a week, that's 300 families that get $10 extra of food that week. So that not only helps them, but that's $3,000 extra going to local farmers. So it creates an immediate impact.
From the farmer standpoint, it's really difficult for us to compete with the prices of the big stores. They might be able to sell tomatoes for $1 a pound or even less, where I'm charging $4 a pound for tomatoes. And there's no other way that we can be sustainable than to charge the prices that we do. But if you happen to use SNAP cards or EBT, you're not going to be able to afford. You go look at this and think, I can get so much more if I just go to the store and buy food that's maybe not quite so fresh.
So we are wanting to increase the amount of healthy food that people can access by having these farmers markets all over the city and county having this double dollar program. Something like it has been done across the country, and the stories I hear from them are all pretty similar. The one in Kansas City told me they had basically, I think they only had 1 or 2 markets that even took SNAP before they started. And within 3 years, they were dispersing, I think, $150,000 in double bucks for the city. So that's kind of the numbers we're looking at. We want to go by 3 years from now, we would like to be around that area as well. The SNAP matching dollar program for this year, we're really just trying to raise $5,000 plus for the 2014 season. But we expect this to go indefinitely into the future. So this is really just the first step to help establish the program. But the idea is to expand the amount of farmers markets in the area that take SNAP. And I mean, once we wrap up the campaign in mid-August, we'll be dispersing that money by the end of August and hopefully getting people out there and eating more healthy food from the farmers markets. So that's a lot of money going back into the local economy, not only helping low-income families, but also giving more income to our farmers.
So that is, in a nutshell, SNAP to it. And the farmers markets that are participating are the International Institute. They have 2 farm locations, and they sell their produce from their farm. So They have a farmer's market in U City on Saturdays, and then they also sell produce at the International Institute on Tuesdays, and they accept EBT. So they're part of our Double Bucks program, Snap to It. We also have the North City Farmers Market in Old North, the Webster Groves Farmers Market, the Cherokee Street International Farmers Market, Schlafly Farmers Market, and then Earth Dance, which has a stand at the Ferguson Farmers Market. Right now, the Ferguson Market does not accept EBT as a whole market, but Earth Dance has the ability to accept EBT. So we're starting with Earth Dance, and hopefully we can get the Ferguson Market to get on board with accepting EBT for the whole market. And then Tower Grove Farmers Market, they accept EBT. They actually have their own independent funding for a Double Bucks program, and they're in the process of doing their own thing right now, and I hope that we'll combine our efforts in the future. So they're on the radar too. And we've been collaborating and coordinating with 2 different Double Up Food Bucks programs in the country. One in Kansas City, which is called Beans and Greens, and then the other in Michigan, which is a statewide program and is really like doing a lot of good work. And they're what every state should aspire to be. And theirs is the Double Up Food Bucks program. And they started with 5 farmers markets, and now they're at over 150, and that includes farmers markets and grocery stores. I wish that the PowerPoint worked because the numbers are really, really incredible. So they started their program in 2009, and for that year, the total dollars that were earned for the participating markets were $31,102. That included SNAP dollars and Double Up dollars and regular dollars. And so 4 years later, in 2013, that number had increased to 1,550,994. And more than half of that is from the Double Up dollars that they're using at their market. So it's a very, very tangible economic incentive for local farmers, for local businesses, and for people who are on food stamps. It's a way for them to actually be using and consuming fruits and vegetables. And the best kind of fruits and vegetables, the kind that are grown organically and locally, and they're fresh, they're full of all the nutrients that you need. So Brian DeSmet, the guy that was talking a lot in the video, he's the market manager at the Schlafly market. And last year, as a VISTA, I was responsible for selling our produce at the market. So Brian and I talked a lot about increasing SNAP or EBT usage at the market. And that at the end of last year, he had gotten an EBT machine for the market. But there wasn't that much usage of it. And so we talked, and all of the research that I did, I was like, we're not going to get usage of it until we get a double dollar program. And so we talked, we collaborated with several other markets, and then this summer we were like, we just have to go for it, you know. And we actually last month went to Columbia for a meeting with other people in the state of Missouri who do Snap to It, similar to Snap to It programs. So there's one in Columbia that's just one farmer's market. There are a couple other I think there's one in Jeff City, one in Springfield, and they're all single market programs. And then Kansas City, the huge Beans and Greens program. And they've been very successful too. They haven't seen the numbers that Michigan has seen, but Michigan is a statewide program, so it really grew exponentially. And it was really inspiring and encouraging to be sitting in that meeting with people who had 5 years ago been in the same position that we were in. But St. Louis has a little bit of an edge because we already have a lot more farmers markets that accept EBT. Kansas City had a lot of farmers markets, but they had to go through the whole process of getting EBT at their market as well as implementing a $double program. So we're sort of ahead of the game in that sense, but now the struggle that we're having is finding an entity, an organization that can really help us continue this program because it needs somebody who can spend all of their time and energy working on this. And right now, we are a group of people who are farmers market managers in a VISTA. And so we all have other projects that we are working on full time. And this is just something that we really care about seeing succeed in St. Louis. So it started, but you know, we were successful in raising our money for the Indiegogo campaign, and we also won SLU, which is a crowdsource monthly dinner and crowdsource project presentation party in the city. People pay $10 for a bowl of soup, and then people who have entrepreneur ideas or community development or art ideas can go and pitch their project, and then the winner of that night, based on the votes from the audience, gets all of the money that people paid to attend that evening. So we got a little over $500 from winning one of the SLU events. So now we're in the process of figuring out how we can actually leverage that money that we raised to apply for some state and federal grants that will keep us running with this. And part of that is communicating with other people who have already been doing these programs to see how they promote the program, what they've seen that's been successful and what they've seen that hasn't been so successful, and all of that. So that's kind of, those are the two projects in a nutshell. And I'm open for questions. We can take a look at the map that I made. And whatever you guys are interested in doing.
Let's see the map.
All right. Do you have a question?
Where in Michigan?
Well, I think it started in Detroit, but it's all over the state now.
Oh,
And actually they just released their 5-year success story, which is really great. I don't know who does their graphics, but they're awesome. And there's a map in the back that shows all of the participating partners. There's 4 different layers. There's the stores that accept EBT. So these are, in the full screen, you'd be able to see all 8 of them. The food pantries, the gardens, and then the areas of need I categorize with a core cloth map showing the poverty level. So the dark red is the poorest area, and then the light yellow is the least poor area. And you can turn on and off each of these layers. So you could look only at the base map. You could look at the base map and food pantries. You can pick and choose to add and subtract, combine all of the different layers. You can also click on each census tract and see this is 150% poverty level, which census tract it is. The median household income is $22,700, and there's 36% of the households receiving SNAP. So you can compare that with this census tract, which is 91% poverty level, has a much lower median household income of $17,000, and over 50% of the households receiving food stamps. And then with each of the different points on the map, you can click on them and get information about them as well. So this is a convenience store called the Union Supermarket, and it's located at 4962 Union Boulevard, and you can get more information about that. And then the same with the gardens. And eventually, I think it would be really awesome if the gardens could have more information, like up to 10 community members can become a part of this garden. Right now we have 8 available beds. But that would require every single community garden coordinator to call me and tell me what's going on in their garden and for me to update this every year. So this isn't really the right format or platform for that, but maybe there is a more interactive, collaborative map that could be something like that. And then the food pantries as well, most of them, if I had the information, it showed the days and the hours that they were open. And I had someone who had interns call and have their interns call and verify each location. So I had someone else double check for me. Yeah, so the census tract that I use as an example in, let's see, in my PowerPoint is this one over here. Because it's one of the poorest areas and has a really high percentage of households that are receiving food stamps. But it has a lot of community gardens. You can see that the red is convenience store and the dark red is gas station. So it doesn't have a lot when it comes to healthy food that's available in that area. But there are lots of gardens, several food pantries, and then just a little ways south, here's a healthy corner store. And then here's the the West End Farmers Market. So how are, I look at this map and I think, how are all of these gardens that are around this corner store and this farmer's market, are they in communication with each other? Are they in communication with the healthy corner store and with the farmer's market? Is there a way to work with these convenience store owners and see if they would be willing to take some of that produce? Instead of just looking and only seeing the statistics, only seeing the numbers, it's a little bit more hopeful. So I'm hoping some grad students from SLU and WashU want to look at this map and come up with some projects.
Is that sort of the next step that you're thinking about, how to make those connections happen? I'm at the Episcopal Church here in town, and we have a big garden that we started this year, only in order to give the food away. It's not a community garden in the normal sense. And one of the things that we're working on is who can take fresh produce, because not every food pantry can use that. If they're not well staffed, if they don't have people coming every day, then it's not necessarily, they don't always want it. So connecting up with the right sources. Then there's a whole other issue around, like you were talking about, gardens can be really empowering for people. So the whole issue of charity versus, getting people involved in food production itself. I'd love to hear you talk about that.
Yeah, there's a reason why food pantries and corner stores don't have produce available, and it's because they don't have the infrastructure to keep that produce fresh. And so they're small. The thing that's the most economically viable for them is to buy products that have a long shelf life, because if they don't sell them, they're not losing money. They can keep them on the shelf for years if they need to before they sell them. Whereas with apples, you have a short window of time to sell those before they go bad. And so that's a challenge, definitely. And I have been pretty encouraged by the interest that both Operation Food Search and the St. Louis Area Food Bank have shown in connecting with gardens. And most of these food pantries are partnered with them. They fall under the network of those two organizations. So there's definitely work that's being done at each of those organizations to see how to incorporate gardens and produce into that picture. The food preservation classes that we did at SLU was kind of a way to work on some of those issues as well. But there's a lot of creativity that's going to have to go into finding some of these solutions. I finished this map in April and then gave a presentation in May. Gateway Greening had people there, Operation Food Search, the St. Louis Area Food Bank, TrailNet, WashU, UMSL, a lot of different people in the St. Louis area that work on things related to components of this map were there. And a lot of people showed interest in posting the map on their sites. And I have to follow up with people to send them information on how they can do that. But it was really inspiring to see so many different people from all these different organizations in the same room and think that this one tool could be sort of a unifying component for those organizations, because I've found just in the year and a half that I've worked in St. Louis that it's very easy to kind of work in your own silo and to not keep that collaboration flowing with other people. So, you know, this is sort of my like subversive way to get that going a little bit. If they're all using the same resource, then they all, you know, are coming to some kind of unified platform. Yeah. Any other questions?
Does your gardens differentiate CSAs, community gardens? Because I know Earth Dance is a CSA also.
So if I have information about if they have a CSA, I have included that in the pop-up window, but because I was using the free version of this mapping service, I couldn't actually differentiate in this layer. If I had had more tables available, I could have created a separate layer for farms that have CSAs and that kind of thing. But and like the SLU garden, somewhere over here. Is it? No. No, it's on there. There's a lot more of a description there because that's my garden and I know exactly what's in it. So, or not my garden, but the garden that I work in. So, you know, ideally, this would be the kind of thing that you could look at this map and find out. And then there would be contact information, somebody that you could email or call to see if there's a bed that's available. And, you know, that this has, I actually should add to this description that there's a culinary camp in the summer that kids can participate in, and that that we have different educational opportunities every once in a while. I hope that I put that on the Gateway Greening on their Bell Garden, because they have classes every Saturday, so that kind of information. But, you know, it was just me doing all of this, so right now I'm in the process of getting even more savvy with my data, and there's a platform where you can upload the data and it's available for everyone, and it tracks if any changes are made. So that will, once I get that up, people can, because I'm not going to go back every year now that I'm done with my VISTA year. I'm probably not going to go back and update like, oh, this convenience store no longer exists, or this community garden no longer exists, or there's another one here. But if it's on this website, then people can go and change that information on their own. And so it won't necessarily be changed in the format of this particular map, but the information will be out there and you can kind of go on a little scavenger hunt through the web and find it.
So right now, who has access to this map? How is one?
Right now it's on the St. Louis University Nutrition and Dietetics webpage. If you go to the Nutrition and Dietetics webpage, it's under the SLU FoodCorps tab, and then there's another tab that's the mapping food access, and it's on the page there.
What's the Schlafly garden or fruit? Is it in St. Louis City?
It's not in the city, it's in Maplewood, but I think I have them on here. Oh, that's Maplewood, Richmond Heights. This might be over here. Actually,
Does Phyllis Schlafly have anything to do with it?
I don't know.
What's the name?
The restaurant uses it.
Oh, the restaurant?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm not actually sure. Most of the gardens I got from Gateway Greening. They have a map and a downloadable version of the locations of all of their community gardens. And they've done a great job of keeping up their database. When a community garden applies through Gateway Greening and gets accepted, then they add that to their database. So I think it'd be really cool if someone went through their database and made like a live video map, because if you have the date of when that garden was established, then you could make like a map of St. Louis City and the county and show in real time, like throughout the years, how many community gardens have formed, which I think would be so cool, because St. Louis is like really up there when it comes to community gardens and urban agriculture and sustainability. Like when I moved back here, I was pleasantly surprised with how great we are with all of that. And a big part of that is because of Gateway Greening and how long they've been doing all of their work here in the city.
Is this going on all over the United States? All the cities, or?
This map, no. I also have to share this map with other people because it was not that difficult to make, and other people in other cities can start doing it.
St. Louis is a leader.
Yeah,
in this field.
yeah. But a lot of the urban agriculture work is happening in other cities too, and like with the Snap to It, the Double Bucks program up in Michigan, over in Kansas City. When I was researching different models that worked well, Michigan and Kansas City were the two that were the most relevant to us and the most successful. But there are programs all over the United States that are doing similar things. Yeah.
Yes, case scenarios, what do you see happening with all this?
Best case scenario would be that other people have visions. Like I see this as a tool for people in the neighborhood that doesn't have access to be able to use this map to leverage their resources and say, what do we have? How can we use this to advocate for something better? I need to go back and talk with Rhonda Smythe from TrailNet. She told me, you need to present this to the Board of Aldermen. They need to see this, because if you break it down like this and they see that there's no grocery store in their ward, then they're probably going to want to do something about that. So there's a lot of political leverage that can be made. There's lots of different ways that this map can have an impact. And that's the cool thing, is that like I don't have to do anything more now. I made the map, now everybody else can do their projects.
How do we educate people to find the map and use the map? I mean, the board of aldermen, getting to them and talking to them.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else?
Well, part of that is getting all of the different community organizations to put it on their website. And then if you have people from Gateway Greening, TrailNet, St. Louis Area Food Bank, Operation Food Surge, all going to an alderman or an alderwoman and saying, hey, you need to do something, and they're all bringing this same tool, it's more likely that the alderman or the alderwoman is going to do something. So I think it's just a matter of not just connecting the resources in the city, but also having people that work on these projects and use these resources and try to improve these resources working together as well. So,
You know, I think that's a good point about the education part, because I think if you look at all this, it's great, and it's great to encourage people to eat more fruits and vegetables, which that's really the bottom line here, is to try to get them to eat more healthy. But to me, it's how do you increase the demand? This helps the supply, bringing in more vegetables and fruit, and that's really a great thing in these areas. And you know, all of us probably in here realize you should eat a balanced diet of fruits and vegetables. People down there are going to Church's Fried Chicken for dinner. And so how do you educate them to increase the demand to want to eat those kind of foods versus fried chicken?
I think that education is definitely a really important component, and our dietetics program, we do cooking demos at farmers markets. Operation Food Surge does cooking demos too, because a lot of times people who have only had access to food from the corner store, when they go to a farmer's market, they might not know how to actually prepare a certain vegetable. So that's definitely an important component. But if you look at Kansas City Beans and Greens, and if you look at the Double Up Food Box in Michigan, as soon as the Double Up Food Box programs were there, the dollars spent increased exponentially. So part of access is proximity, but it's also financial access. And so if we are actually, I see the Snap to It program as a program that subsidizes healthy food on a local level for low-income families. Because ideally, at some point, we would live in a country where healthy food and fruits and vegetables and fresh food and local food was subsidized by our federal government. But that's just not the reality right now. We care more about producing corn and biodiesel than we do about fresh fruits and vegetables and local farmers. So programs like Snap to It are a way to subsidize on a local level, and these programs in Kansas City and Michigan that have been around for 5 years, like, you just can't, I hope you get a chance to look at some of the graphics in there, but I mean, going from, I don't remember what I said, but it was definitely less than $100,000, $30,000 to over $1.5 million in 4 or 5 years. I mean,
They're reaching people.
that's a lot of people, a lot of dollars that are being spent. And if you're only allowed to, and for them, they're only allowed I think it's $20 per person per market. So, you know, it's increasing the number of people that are getting those fruits and vegetables. And it's also increasing the sales that the farmers are experiencing. So, it's a win-win. Good for the local economy, good for the people that are in the neighborhoods, good for the farmers that are growing the food. Maybe not so great for Cargill, but they're not struggling, so I'm not worried. Yeah.
Can I tell just a little story about that? So we just started our garden in March, and in those however many months, we've raised 1,800 pounds of produce and given pretty much all of it away. And once we found the right places to give it, we realized that there's just almost a bottomless need out there. And so one example is that we, when everything first started in Ferguson and we were hearing that food pantries there were not getting food to them, we did a little, just bringing your canned goods, whatever. And I said to them how much, I know the priest there at St. Stephen's, and I said how much fresh produce can you use? And he's like, oh, I don't know, we haven't been doing that well with that. You know, he was a little bit iffy about it. So what we did was we collected canned food, but then we took all the cherry tomatoes from that week. We put them in little baggies so that it was like an individual size serving. And we said, you know, just try it. If people don't want them, that's fine. Keep them for your community, take them home, whatever you want to do. But he said they would like that. Like when they were there as an option that was clear and simple and along with other, you know, things that people were going there for. He said they were gone that morning. It was just so quick. So I think we have to, when we hear these stories and they're helpful and education is obviously so key, but I feel really hopeful too that when it's available, people want it.
Mm-hmm. Another example of that is with the Healthy Corner Store projects. The Shaw Market on Shaw and Clem, I think, is one of the Healthy Corner Stores. And the owner was kind of struggling. He had watermelons for sale. And nobody was buying these watermelons, and he didn't get it because everybody loves watermelon. Well, when he cut them up and sold them in you know, smaller portions, they were going so quickly, and it was like his best-selling item. And another thing that he was so, he's just a really creative guy. With the Botanical Gardens concert series every Wednesday night throughout the summer, he made these food picnic baskets, basically, and had healthy, fresh fruits and vegetables available in those, you know, to-go dinners. And people were buying those like crazy on their way to the Botanical Gardens. So, and part of what the Healthy Corner Store project does is it works with schools in the community, it works with community organizations that have a vested interest in the community to help the people who run the store think about what the needs of the community are and how they can meet those. Because it's a lot when you're trying to just, you know, go from one extreme to the other. But if you're doing it with lots of intention and with lots of different players and people helping you make those changes, then it's actually very possible. And we've seen a lot of success with the Healthy Corner stores in particular too.
Is there anyone, since this is based out of SLU, is there anybody who's thinking about K-12 curriculum with a map like this?
I don't know, actually.
Because it seems like perfect upper elementary, middle school problem solving, like learning about maps and math and demographics and stuff.
Well, I know that some WashU students are going to be using it for some of their, some students from the Brown School of Social Work are going to be using it for some of their projects. But yeah, that would be, I think that would be fantastic. I don't know that we necessarily have really strong ties with any one particular school or teacher or anyone that would do that, but
there's a program called Ag in the Classroom that's very active in Illinois and Missouri, and they go out to the schools and talk about where's your food come from and nutritional value and trying to get people to start eating more fruits and vegetables and less carbs.
Yeah. We do a lot of that with our dietetic interns. We have nutrition education and we teach gardening. It's very limited, like trying to incorporate it into the school curriculums that already exist. So I think adding a project like this would, for us, any of the schools in the St. Louis public school system would be pretty not very feasible.
You might have someone.
Yeah, there may
went
be
to
one
different schools and did a mini course for their school that would incorporate this map, would incorporate the nutrition aspect and growing your own.
Yeah, I definitely think this could be, especially for middle schoolers, could be like a really great learning tool.
Well, it's 8:15. If you have any more questions, I'm sure Erin would be happy to stay and answer them. But we should probably bring the evening to a formal close. But feel free to stay and talk if you'd like to. So let's thank Erin.